Hello and welcome to We Mean Business. As India celebrates the Festival of Lights, millions across the country continue to go without power to light up their homes. The recent blackouts left half the country in virtual darkness, and growing shortages in coal and gas, India's mainstay fuels, means things could get only worse if an alternative to our reliance on fossil fuels isn't found. In a scenario like this, can renewable energy be a real solution to India's protracted power crisis? And has the government done enough to harness this alternative? Joining me to debate this is Sanjay Chakravarti, head of Cleantech at Ernst & Young. He joins us here in the Mumbai studios. Also joining us from New Delhi is Sumant Sinha, chairman and CEO of Renew Power. And for a finance and commercial viability perspective, we have Rajat Misra, Senior Vice President of Project Advisory and Structured Finance at SBI Caps, also joining in from Mumbai. In fact, let's begin the discussion with Sumant Sinha. Mr. Sinha, if I can get you in on what I began in the introduction, do you really think that renewable energy can be a real solution to India's protracted power crisis, if not in the short term, at least in the medium term?
I absolutely believe that it can be a solution. I think if you look at the percentage of renewables in our total energy basket right now, it's about 4 or 5%. We can very easily notch that up to 10%, even 15%. And the reason for that is that gestation periods for renewables are short, and within a year's time you can set up a fairly large amount of capacity. Two, the costs of renewables are fairly well understood. Wind particularly is very mature, and so adding capacity in wind is absolutely possible. Number three, India has fairly abundant natural resource in both wind, in which a very small part has actually been tapped so far, and certainly even more so in solar. So I think given all of these parameters and given the maturity of the ecosystem that exists for both wind and increasingly now I think going forward for solar, I think clearly there is an opportunity for India to really give a push to renewables and make that a much broader basket of part of India's energy basket. The other factor is that at this point in time, you have a number of players that have entered the market. Government policies are reasonably mature. And so I think with the availability of technology and manufacturing in India, this is also very good for India's manufacturing ecosystem as well. So I think from a number of different points, it is quite clear to me that renewables absolutely will form a bigger and bigger part of India's power basket going forward. And I think in addition to that, if you look at the fact that the cost of wind particularly is now very competitive with the coal, particularly looking at imported coal, I think from a cost standpoint as well, it absolutely makes sense for the government and for players like us to really push forward on the addition of wind capacity in India. And even though we added about 3,000 megawatts last year, the industry this year is looking at less than that, but we can easily go up to 4,000-5,000 megawatts every year. And that is really what we should be pushing for in both the short term and the medium term, even more than that, because solar can kick in as well.
Mr. Sinha, if the opportunity really is so large, why do you think renewables is not being brought into the mainstream? I mean, when we debate about India's power crisis, it's all about FSAs, it's all about expediting anything to do with coal. Why then do you think the government is not so active when it comes to promoting renewables?
Well, the answer for that is very simple. For whatever reason, renewables is looked at as a more expensive source of power. And coal is always seen as being cheaper. But I think if you properly cost coal, coal mining, as you know, is nationalized in India, and therefore coal is available to power producers at very subsidized rates. If you actually fully cost coal and look at sort of benchmarking it against global prices, you'll find that coal typically will cost about 4 to 4 rupees 50 paise per unit in India today, whereas wind is probably at 4 rupees 50 paise to 5 rupees. So there isn't really any difference. But the problem is, because coal is subsidized, everybody believes that the actual cost of coal-based power generation in India is 3 rupees or 250 or whatever it might be, and therefore the difference when wind when set against that is a little bit steeper. But the fact is, coal is the biggest subsidized energy industry in India. Wind, when we look at the prices, we don't talk about any subsidies at all. So we're really comparing apples and oranges. And I think that is one of the things that is in a way shaping people's perceptions about renewable energy, which I think is actually misplaced. So really going forward, I think that with the slightest bit of incentivization, wind can actually become a much bigger contributor to the power basket because of these factors.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.